Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Matt Citak. We're going to be here for the next hour to talk NFL and Giants football with you at 201-939-4513. And as a reminder, if you're not watching the show live, you can always catch it on the archive and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. Now, things are a little slow today, right? Not a whole lot going on. We got the championship game teams preparing through their final practices as they get ready for the weekends. Sunday's actually Championship Sunday. But in terms of Giants news, it's slow right now. Yep. So one of the things that I thought we might do today, and we welcome your phone calls on this. If you have Giants stuff, by all means, please. That's what the show's about. But I thought we might go over the NFL honors because just the other day, the NFL released its full list of finalists for each of the NFL honors categories. Now, as part of NFL honors this year, as they've done the last few years, they're also going to be announcing the Hall of Fame ballot results as well. So I can tell you this. I just want to get this out of the way, and it's just something that I've been itching to talk about ever since the Baseball Hall of Fame ballot came out 2 days ago. You're aware, Ichiro. Yep. Fell one vote short of unanimous. Yep. Okay? And Mariano Rivera is the only unanimous Baseball Hall of Famer ever. Jeter was also a vote short. Why do I bring this up? Well, I bring it up for one reason and one reason only. It is my opinion, and strictly my opinion, and Matt may debate me on this, and he's certainly welcome to, that everyone who has a Hall of Fame ballot should be held accountable for their ballot. I am not a big fan of the secret ballots. Now, why? Well, because there's criteria to vote for a Hall of Famer, whether it's baseball, football, each of the Halls of Fames, they have criteria that you have to follow and you have to judge. And it seems to me that everyone should be able to have conviction in the items on the checklist that they believe the player met or did not meet to be put on the ballot or to be left empty. In other words, the guy who didn't vote for Derek Jeter and the guy who didn't vote for Ichiro, and for anybody who decides not to vote for Eli Manning, and there will be some, we already know that. There have been some vocal people over the last couple of years who said they won't vote for Eli, and they certainly won't vote for him on first ballot. I believe that all of those people, not to be persecuted, but simply to allow them to state their conviction. Why is it that you voted as you did? These are the guys you voted for. You want to make your case and tell us why you did? Great. We respect that. You had conviction in your beliefs. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. That's why they give out ballots. Ballots are nothing more than opinions. They're not facts. They're opinions. They are subjective. So it seems to me, if you want to continue voting the following year and the following year and the following year, you should have your ballot public. And if anybody wishes to ask you why you did or did not vote for a certain guy, step up and state your conviction. This is why I think he is. This is why I think he's not. And as we talked about with the bridge quarterback for the last month, okay, or 2 months or whatever it's been, and we'll keep talking about it, everybody can have a different checklist. If the guy checks your checklist, you vote for him. If he doesn't, you don't. My only point is this. Respect the guy and agree to disagree as long as he has conviction in his checklist and it makes perfect sense. In other words, a guy who didn't vote for Eli, don't tell me he never won anything. That's not a fact. That's a lie. It's not that he never won anything. He won 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So don't tell me he didn't win anything. That's a lie. Don't tell me he had a 500 career record. That's a lie. He was 8-4 in the postseason. You add that to the regular season record because they're the most important games of his career, and he is over 500. So as long as you have conviction in your beliefs and it's factual, and then you have an opinion that may weigh it differently, I believe you should have the conviction to make your votes public. And I bring this up because I know there's a lot of consternation about Eli Manning going into the Hall, especially on the first ballot. And when I saw this thing with Ichiro 2 days ago, Matt, I was like, the same guy who didn't vote for Ichiro, if it's the same guy who didn't vote for Jeter because, I didn't want them to be unanimous first ballot. Okay, that's a crock. That's just dumb. That's not a factual reason. That's just you being wishy-washy. So that's how I think about this. You may feel otherwise, and it's okay if you do. It's an opinion. I just think that people should be held accountable, and they should have conviction enough in what they voted or how they voted that they should be allowed to step up and explain themselves.
Yeah. Well, two things.
Yeah.
First of all, nice little speech there.
Thank you.
Well done. First off, I just would like to say I believe that Eli Manning deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I believe that he's done enough to warrant being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
All that said, I would not put him in the same category as Jeter and Ichiro. And this is coming from a Mets fan. I don't even like Jeter or the Yankees. I respect Jeter. Certainly don't like him. But
I feel the same way.
But I love Eli.
Pearson, nobody asked you, okay?
Ichiro should have been unanimous.
Eli, as great as of a career as he had.
I thought you were down on Eli, Pearson. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just making sure.
Eli doesn't quite get to that same level. Because even if Eli does make it as a first ballot Hall of Famer, he's not going to be a unanimous Hall of Famer.
No.
But Ichiro and Jeter both deserve to be unanimous Hall of Famer. So I just wanted to make that slight differentiation because I hear what you're saying. And to my second point, I agree and disagree.
Okay.
I agree that everyone who has a Hall of Fame vote should have to make their vote public. They should have to show who they voted for.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't fully agree with is the defending their ballot after that. I think if you have a Hall of Fame vote, you should put it out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get, like, let's say that one person that did not vote for Ichiro, you get criticized, that's up to you to defend your own stance. If you want to just hide away, then by all means, you have that right. At least you made your vote public. But I feel like if people are putting their votes public, no one's going to do that because no one's going to just sit there and get criticized and ridiculed by, every single baseball or football fan in the country, in the world, and not defend their stance. But I don't think it should be like mandated that you have to defend yourself, but
I agree.
Everyone with a right mind, you think, would do that.
I don't want to be misinterpreted. I don't believe that you should have to defend yourself. I believe you should be given the opportunity to defend yourself.
Yeah.
So that you can step up. For example, if I could make the phone call right now and get the guy on the air who did not vote for Jeter and the guy who did not vote for Ichiro, and it may have been the same guy, I'd like to say, hey, sir, look, I don't get it. It kind of blows my mind. I don't think that too many other people on the planet get it either. But, hey, the floor is yours. Why?
Yeah.
What is it that compelled you not to check that box? Just like I would ask anybody, and I'm not so much comparing Eli to those two guys as first ballot guys. I'm simply stating that in terms of his Hall of Fame qualifications, for anybody who wants to leave that box empty, I mean, I'd like to hear why. I may disagree with you. In fact, I will disagree with you, but at least I'd like to hear why. And if you've got legitimate stuff, maybe I'll even shake your hand and say, you know what? I appreciate the way you voted. Maybe next year you might see it differently, but hey, move on. That's it. Done. But the way it is now, I think all of us, and again, I don't want to speak for you, Matt, but I think all of us are shaking our heads saying, there's a guy out there who didn't vote for Ichiro? There's a guy out there who didn't vote for Derek Jeter. Like, the dude doesn't deserve the right to vote. I mean, what piece of evidence could you give me that says Ichiro's not a Hall of Famer, Jeter's not a Hall of Famer? What piece of evidence could you give me? To me, if you are that out of bounds without some type of factual explanation that can explain why you did what you did, how is it that you have the right to keep voting? Because you're only going to muck up the process.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I just look at it is there are 394 voters, at least this year, for the Hall of Fame, MLB Hall of Fame.
Well, in football, there's 50.
Yeah, but just in this example with Ichiro, 394 voters. If 393 of the 394 vote one way, the one person that did it is likely, trying to make a point, or just, as you said, trying to just make sure that player who clearly deserves to be a unanimous Hall of Famer doesn't get it. They're trying to be the instigator in a way. And that's not about the player or his talents. That to me, that vote then is based on an intangible that you feel about the player, not about the player's accomplishments. Yep.
That's why I don't think you should be allowed to vote again.
Yeah, no argument.
Because you're not basing that reason on the man's evidence, on the man's abilities, on the man's career. You're basing it on just some personal bias that you have that has nothing to do with what he did on the field. And that's how I feel about Eli Manning. I'm just, look, when it comes out on February 9th, correct?
No, that's the day of the Super Bowl.
February 6th.
6th, yeah.
February 6th is the Hall of Fame ballot announcement. Folks, be prepared. I'm telling you now, Eli doesn't get in, I'm going to be a volcano. I'm just letting you know right now, because there is no way, shape, or form Eli Manning is not a Hall of Famer. There are no facts on this planet that are going to convince me of that. None. Anyway. All right, we're going to get to our calls in just a second here. Just want to remind folks, Giants Huddle podcast is up. It's active. John's already made his trip down to the Shrine Bowl practices. There's press conferences today. There's going to be practices starting tomorrow. He's going to get some reports for us. We're going to talk to him again on Monday's program and get some of the flavor of what's going on at the Shrine Bowl over the weekend. In the meantime, Pearson, what is our huddle schedule? Who is up and when are they going up?
Right now, what just went up is the conversation with Tyler Nubin that Madeline Burke had with him.
Okay.
And yesterday we had Jeff Risdon as well. That was a good conversation.
All right, great stuff.
And over the weekend, before we hear from John on Monday, John will be sending us some written reports from Shrine Bowl practices down in Frisco, Texas. Mm-hmm. That'll be up on Giants.com, the Giants app. We'll have a tracker going on with highlights and updates from these Shrine Bowl practices. So tune to Giants.com and the Giants mobile app to keep you updated until we hear from John himself on Monday.
And I haven't seen his schedule, but they are anticipating sending video too to you guys.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Because we had some coaches down there as well.
Yes,
leading
which
the coaching staffs.
We've told you all about that for the last week. 5 of the Giants coaches are going to the 2 premier college all-star games, which is certainly very helpful and fruitful for evaluating some talent. All right, let's go to the phone calls because we do have 3 people already on the line. And then at some point during the program, Matt and I are going to go over the NFL finalists for all of the significant awards that will then be announced at the NFL Honors on February 6th. But for now, we go to Charlie in Maine. Charlie, you are first on the program. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen.
Hey,
I'd just like to say I am the gentleman that didn't vote for Jeter or didn't vote for Ichiro.
Okay, well, that explains a lot because we already know you're crazy, Charlie, so that's perfectly fine. We can agree to disagree.
Let me give you the reasons why. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is perfect player that never made mistakes or who should be, they're Hall of Famer, but no one should be unanimous because, like I said, nobody's perfect. Jeter was not perfect. Ichiro was not perfect. So that's why I voted against them, because no one is the perfect baseball player. That's why.
Okay. I won't criticize you for that, Charlie. I think that's a very legit statement. Nobody is perfect. Nobody. Period. End of story. If that's your reason, I guess you can stand on it. I just think that, if you are to accept the fact that nobody's perfect, then trying to hold the vote to a perfect standard doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that's my opinion. Please, go ahead.
I have a question.
Question.
I have a question, Charlie. So does that just go for Hall of Fame voting, or like when, the Associated Press releases the college football All-Americans each year, do you think no one should be a unanimous All-American as well?
Good point.
Exactly.
So like
Exactly.
you
I
don't think
unanimous.
Travis Hunter, after the season he just had, deserved to be a unanimous All-American?
No, because he wasn't perfect either. I could show you plays where he got beat. And I just think that no one should be unanimous because they're not perfect players.
Right. As long as you're consistent with that.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Charlie, I do want to throw one caveat here that's a bit of a flaw in that theory. If all of the voters in each of these cases decided in their minds that nobody's perfect and therefore I can't vote for them, well, then you're going to wind up having a lot of no votes. And then you won't have anybody in the Hall of Fame, because if you're going to hold them to the perfect standard, then nobody belongs. Then there should never be a Hall of Fame. Just keep that in mind.
No, it's not. No, it's not that. It's just that there's always should be one or two people who say no. First, I'm not saying they shouldn't get in the next year or whatever, but I just don't think anyone should be unanimous for the reason I just said. Because, look, I mean, in baseball especially, what did Ichiro have as a batting average on his career? Was it a little over 300?
Yeah.
So that means like 70% of the time he made an out. 70% of the time. That's not perfect.
Okay. All right, Charlie, we'll move on from the baseball conversation, but the point about the Hall of Fame is certainly one that I would like to see guys at least have to explain. You called up and at least you explained your point. We may disagree with you, but at least you had the courage to say, okay, I'm the guy who didn't vote for him, and here's why. Well, that's good. I at least appreciate the fact that we can hear from you. Now, please go ahead. Let's talk some football.
Yeah, let's do football. Hey, look, I would have voted for Jeter, and I would have voted for Ichiro anyway, but
so he's just pulling our chain. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. I'm just saying we need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll take a quarterback at 3. I don't think we're gonna skip that unless the Raiders give us a incredible package to move to 3 because they want Shador's standing there, and then we do that. But I think we're going to get our quarterback. I think we're going to get a younger quarterback in free agency. And yesterday, a guy said that he would trade for Milton. I said that months ago I would do that. So, our hooker. And those are the 3 guys I would want. And Eli definitely is a Hall of Fame quarterback, first ballot. Not unanimous, definitely not. But he should get in, no doubt.
Okay.
No doubt about it. Just like you said. I mean, anybody who beat the Patriots in the way he beat them with 2 MVPs in the Super Bowl, carrying this team on his back, playing for 16 years, never missed a game because of injury, some stupid coach's decision. I mean, this guy is true. And Bill Belichick said, right? He's a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Right? So, I mean, and that's enough. That's enough right there. So hopefully he will get in the first ballot. He should. There's no other quarterbacks. I mean, this is the time to do it, right?
That is true.
Okay, guys, look, have a good weekend.
You too, Charlie. Be well.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
I guess I'll just touch on the quarterback.
Go ahead.
Stuff that he discussed. So I know we've obviously talked about the whole quarterback situation. I feel like every time we're on the show together, it gets brought up. Obviously, it's the biggest question the Giants need to answer this offseason.
It's not stopping anytime soon.
No, it's going to be 3 more. The draft starts 3 months from today, exactly. it's going to be 3 straight months of the same conversation almost every day. And again, rightfully so, because it is a very, very crucial question that the Giants need to answer this offseason. I want to clarify something, because I know we've discussed this, especially on Tuesday. If it were up to me, the whole quarterback at 3 situation, I said to you, I don't think I would pick a quarterback at 3. I would take Cam Ward at 3 if he is there. Mm-hmm. I just don't think, again, we're 3 months out. Right now, I just don't think he will be available at 3rd overall.
Mm-hmm.
Things can change. I mean, the Titans GM at his introductory press conference the other day said, we're going to take a generational talent, and there really kind of is only one player that fits that description.
Right.
In Travis Hunter, who's obviously not a quarterback. There's a lot of buzz that the Browns, might go in the direction of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at 2. If that happens, if those 2 guys are the first 2 picks, then I think it's safe to say that it is a pretty likely scenario that the Giants are taking a quarterback at 3. I feel like we don't really know exactly how the first 2 picks are going to go. 1 quarterback could go, 2 quarterbacks could go. I guess there is a small outside chance that no quarterbacks go. But when I have said my comments about, I think I might want to trade back or target a quarterback on day 2, again, 3 months out, and I reserve the right to change my opinion between now and April 24th. But right now, I just don't know if I would take Shedeur Sanders at 3rd overall.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think, the quarterback that will be there available for the Giants at number 3 to take. So just wanted to clarify that, because if Cam Ward is there at 3, I would run up to the podium in a heartbeat and submit that, because I think he is just the perfect blend of, size, athleticism, arm strength that Brian Daboll could just get the best out of and help mold into a very talented quarterback. Shedeur Sanders, I wish he was a better athlete, like more mobile, moving around the pocket, escaping.
Ward has better traits.
Yes.
Really, that's what it
sure.
comes down to.
For sure. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I do think that there is a right scenario where the Giants take a quarterback at 3, and one that I would agree with. Again, right now I lean more towards Cam Ward, but who knows? Shedeur Sanders, beginning Shrine Bowl practices tomorrow. He's got this week at the Shrine Bowl. He's going to at least go to the Combine. Who knows what he'll actually do there, but certainly I would think that he will at least meet with the Giants there. Wouldn't surprise me if down the road, eventually he's in for a top 30 visit. So the Giants are going to get plenty of up-close experience with Shedeur Sanders in particular. And obviously, we are not privy to basically any of those interactions.
We are not. And it's best that we're not, to be honest.
So I will say I have faith that the front office, the coaching staff, they will have a very good read of whether or not they believe Shedeur Sanders can be the guy by the time April 24th comes around.
All right. 2 things that kind of piggyback off of this. Paul Schwartz of the New York Post caught up to Eli Manning yesterday at an event. Eli, as you may or may not know, for many years, he has supported the local organization that has service dogs for the blind. In fact, I've been to a couple of those press conferences over the years. Marvelous organization and what they do, and that's one that Eli has always been behind. So Paul Schwartz in the Post today talked to Eli, or at least yesterday, and in the story, Eli is quoted as saying that he has a lot of information on Jackson Dart, likes him very, very much, can make all the throws, has the skill set, and that if asked by the Giants, he loves watching film, and he would be very glad to offer whatever input that they might want on the quarterback's class. So just telling you, if you didn't see today's New York Post, Eli Manning on the record with a positive impression of Jackson Dart, who he will obviously know a lot about, being he's an Ole Miss guy, okay? And also saying that, hey, I love digging into film, so if they call, I'll be glad to offer some opinions. So that's something I think we kind of speculated about a couple of times, not really knowing. Eli's now on the record as saying that, okay? So we don't have to worry about that anymore. The quotes are there. Phil Simms was also quoted in an article today that went up by one of the beat reporters. And Phil said the plan for him would definitely be sign the veteran quarterback, and he suspects that Sam Darnold will be way out of the Giants' price range. So he's saying sign a veteran quarterback who can compete and win some games in 2025, and then also take a young quarterback in the draft. He did not indicate how high you would take that guy. But he believes that you need to have the veteran who can win some games in 2025 and then have him grooming a young rookie quarterback who you will take at some point in the draft. And that's really as far as he would go. He was not going any more specific than that or pinpointing any particular names. But I just love the fact that the bridge quarterback theory is just gaining more and more momentum every day. I can't tell you how much I love that.
Well, yeah, we know, even if the Giants go out and draft a quarterback, whether it's at 3, 34, third round, day 3, it doesn't matter. As we've talked about, chances are that guy is not going to be starting right away. I guess if you take a quarterback at 3, there is a chance he could win the job early, but
in most years, it kind of turns out that way. When you draft them that high, they force feed them.
Yeah, it depends on the situation, but
it does.
But yeah, the earlier you go, the more pressure there is to get that guy in earlier in his career. But again, we don't know. The Giants don't know how the first 2 picks are going to go.
No,
so they don't know if the quarterback they want at 3 is going to be there. So, and free agency obviously comes before. So, it seems clear that there will be a bridge quarterback brought in, obviously, in some capacity. And just touching on the Darnold thing real quick, obviously we don't know how much he will actually end up getting.
No, we don't.
There's also still a chance that like the Vikings could end up putting the franchise tag on him or the transition tag. But the contract projections that I've at least seen have been around what Baker Mayfield got. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, which was around 3 years, $100 million. If that is the case, the Giants could afford that. They could. They have enough cap space where that is possible, but that's basically the only big acquisition you're making this offseason.
Now you got about enough money to buy a bag of pretzels after that.
Yeah, basically every other player you sign, unless you restructure contracts and create a lot more cap space, the rest of the players you sign, they're going to be around minimum guys. So
yeah,
I agree with Phil that I don't think that is the direction the Giants will go, just because it'll pretty much prevent them from making any other substantial move this offseason. But as we've learned, you never know.
You need to find an economically beneficial quarterback who is going to be this year's version of Sam Darnold. The veteran who's going to come in at a really nice, friendly money number and is going to be able to go out there and play really good football and win you a bunch of games. That's what you need to do. I mean, it's just that simple.
Unfortunately, easier said than done.
Of course. Of course. We go back to the phones. Aaron in Charleston. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello. Aaron, are you there? I think we lost him. Okay, we will go to Jack in New York.
Hello?
Hello.
Aaron?
Hello. Hi.
Yes.
Hey.
That was my fault.
Good morning.
Good morning. Real quick, just to piggyback on what you're talking about with this quarterback situation. I also was a Joe Milton fan. I wanted us to draft him later in the draft last year, just because I felt like he had all these physical tools. He had good coaching, and he played in the SEC. And, he's got a lot of things you can't coach. And I just felt like he needed time to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And he played well in the preseason, and then he played great in this final game. And I'm still interested. I think that should be a move where we try and make a trade for Joe Milton. And I like the idea of having Joe Flacco as our bridge quarterback.
Okay.
Joe Flacco is a guy who has been successful. He's played well as a backup, and he seems fine being a backup. And I don't think he would be expensive or as expensive as some of these other quarterbacks may go.
That's likely.
My opinion.
He will be on the cheaper side of the salary scale.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Right. And like I said, once this young guy, whoever the guy is that we get, is ready, Joe Flacco seems to be a guy who's completely content with being a backup quarterback and helping this young guy. He's just happy to be on the bench and still be playing ball. That's how it appears to me, and that's similar to what he sounded like in interviews. He's not trying to relive his glory days and continue to be a starter. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that's just a quarterback. My main thing is I called today because I want to talk about our offensive line still. Our offensive line played really well earlier in the season before all the injuries. But I still didn't think we were a top offensive line in the league. And I think we should do something like find a coordinator, get whatever other pieces that we'll still need. But I personally think we should try and spend money on a coordinator or, an offensive line coach who's going to take us to that next level, as far as an offensive line. I think no matter what, if you can protect your quarterback, whoever that is, and run the ball, you have a chance of winning most games in the NFL.
Well, Carmen Brasillo brought the Giants from historically horrible as an offensive line to now maybe the top of the third quadrant, which was a significant improvement. You don't want to give him another shot?
Yeah, I mean, if you look on also an individual basis, while the guys I'm about to say, they certainly did not have perfect seasons by any means, but Evan Neal, John Michael Schmitz, Josh Azudu, they all took steps this past season. Again, they were not perfect by any means, but all three of them showed pretty substantial improvement this past season than the year before. And I think Carmen Brasillo deserves a bunch of the credit for those improvements.
Van Roten and Illuminor are very solid offensive linemen, and they are because of Brasillo. And I think in terms of Neal, the last third of the season when he was in there every week, that was probably the most consistent stretch that he's had since he's been a Giant.
He was legitimately dominant in the run game. Yeah. The pass blocking still, there are improvements still to make done, for sure.
No doubt.
But in terms of his run blocking, Neal looked great out there. And Brasillo definitely deserves at least some of that credit.
So I'm curious, why do you want to get another offensive line coach? I don't really get that.
Well, my thing is, I've seen the improvement. That's true. But I don't think Carmen Brasillo is an elite offensive line coach. And maybe I'm wrong and never remains to be seen. But one thing that's been true about the New York Giants is our team is getting hurt every single year. Really bad with injuries.
That's not on him.
For a long time. And my thing is, and I know that's not on the coaches. I agree with you. But my point is our backups, they need to be coached up too. Like, that's a super important thing. And so that when those guys go out, we need another guy ready to go. And some of those guys don't step in right away, you know what I mean, and play well. Like Hubbard did a good job this season in the run game. He was fantastic in the run game, but it was tough to watch in the pass game.
Okay, but Hubbard's on the back end of his career, and to be frank with you, he's not really a tackle. He's much more of a guard than he is a tackle because he's got very short arms.
He was also a tackle signed off of someone else's practice squad in the middle of the season.
I mean, with all due respect to him, and I like Chris, by the way. I'm a fan of the fact that he's had such a productive, long NFL career. But at this stage, where he is and what you're expecting from him, I think is a little bit higher than what the reality is.
I honestly wasn't expecting a lot. I was just expecting a little more in the pass game. And what you said about him being a guard, I see that. I understand. You know what I mean? And it's not just him. I think our offensive line needs to be a strength. I don't think it's a strength right now. And I don't think it's a strength right now. I'm talking about, like, Stout in Philadelphia is incredible.
Oh, yeah. Hey, my friend, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. John Maris said offensive line depth was his third priority of the three that he gave the media just a few weeks ago. Nobody is sitting here. Please, I don't want to turn this into a debate because we agree. We all agree.
Yeah, we do.
The Giants' offensive line must get better. Absolutely, 100%. Now, whether or not you draft one or two guys and bring them along, or maybe a guy challenges to be a starter. God only knows. We all want the best 5 guys on the field. So we're with you in that regard. I'm not sure we agree with all of the roadmaps that you want to take to get there, but we agree in premise.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And just one more thing. What's your opinion on this defensive coordinator? I personally think, Saleh looks like he's going to go back to San Francisco. Great. But there might be other guys who are out there who've had better defenses than the gentleman we have currently. And I just don't know. I mean, personally, I think in our division, with all these top teams that we have now, our division, the Eagles and Washington and Dak and these guys can throw the ball. They can still score. But our defense has to be better than what it has been this season. And I think we got a lot of young pieces that are awesome and that are made. I just think direction is the thing. And so I understand our defense coordinator. We needed a guy. He has a history of stopping the run, but you could still throw the ball on Tennessee when he was there. And personally, I want to see us upgrade that if we can. If I was in that position, the talent is out there. Like Eberflus has had very good defenses. His offenses wasn't good. He wasn't a very good head coach, but he was an awesome defensive coordinator. Same thing with Saleh and some of these other guys that are out there.
Aaron, appreciate the phone call. Thank you so much for dialing in. I will say this. Look, I grew up, covering Belichick and John Fox and, some pretty darn good guys, Steve Spagnuolo. So, those guys are creme de la creme. Okay, so I don't want to get into comparing defensive coordinators. But here's what I will say. Shane Bowen's credentials when he got to the Giants were certainly well documented, and they were of a high level. He had been successful in this league as a DC when he got here. Do I think that some of the pieces that the Giants had on defense maybe weren't the best fit for his scheme and what he wanted to do, and they needed to find maybe a better way during the season to mesh his scheme with their skill sets? Absolutely. I think when the Giants are doing their self-evaluation, that's one of the things that they're trying to figure out is as these guys were adapting to him and he was adapting to them, there were rough spots. It's his second season now. So now you would expect he will make adjustments. The players will make adjustments. Hopefully they will also learn more and become more acclimated to what they're being asked to do. And, of course, you're going to add some more talent as well. So I don't see the need necessarily to just blow it up and say you got to get somebody else. I think there is some leeway there to say, well, we do think that there are ways to improve the situation. Yeah. And John Mara said that too, because defense was the number 2 priority on his checklist.
Yeah, I was about to say, look, no one is going to stand up here and try to argue that the Giants defense played well this past season. That unit struggled, period. Like 100% without a doubt. I do believe, as you said, year 2 in a system, players just feel more comfortable. They know the system. They know, the verbiage a little better. So you would expect to see some improvements from year 1 to year 2. And again, I'm not using this as an excuse for the Giants defense, but it doesn't help your defense when your offense can't stay on the field.
No doubt.
It's constantly, having 3 and outs, and the defense is constantly having to go back on after just having a long drive, gets to sit for 3 minutes, and then they're back out there again.
Game flow was terrible.
Yes, all season the game flow is terrible. So improving the offense will also help your defense out. It's not going to make everything, all the issues from this past season go away. By no means am I saying it's going to do that. But improvements on offense will help your defense for sure. And again, I don't want to use this as an excuse, but the defense, similar to a lot of pieces on the offense, had so many injuries this past season. And especially, we've spoken about how when Andrew Thomas went down, the Giants offensive line sort of, kind of in a sense crumbled after that. When Dexter Lawrence went down, the defense kind of took the similar sort of hit. And that shouldn't come as a surprise. Dexter Lawrence is an all-pro defensive tackle.
And in the final month of the season, Okereke was out too.
Yeah, Okereke was out. Kayvon missed a month.
Middle of the year.
In the middle of the year, exactly. So not using this as an excuse, but you would hope in year 2, everyone healthy and with a better offense, you'd hope, and not even hope, you'd expect the defense to take a somewhat substantial jump from what we saw this past season.
You know, what you do when you look at a guy's body of work, you have to look at it in its entirety. And for the reasons that they brought Shane Bowen in and hired him as a DC, because he had an accomplished NFL resume, you don't just disregard that because there were some warts on this year's defense. You say, okay, no, this guy, when we brought him in, we had a belief in a lot of really good things that he did. So let's give him a chance to adjust and fix it. That's what you do. Anyway.
The only other thing I just want to touch the beginning of the call, Joe Milton. Mm-hmm. I've seen other people talk about this. I just want to, calm everyone down a little bit, because the one actual game that we saw Joe Milton play in, it was in Week 18 against all of Buffalo's backup defenders. That's who he went and had a great game against. And for Joe Milton, he played great in that last game, for sure. But it was against backups that he did it. And it was a 1-game sample size. He was in college for 6 years. He only had one, full good season, really, his last year at Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And even those numbers, they were pretty good, but they're not that much different than what, Jalen Milroe's numbers are.
He lost
or were
2
this
years
past season.
to season-ending injuries.
Yeah.
So you can't even say, well, he was in college for 6 years like Bo Nix was and had a wealth of experience. That's not true. He didn't play as a starter for most of his college career.
Yeah. Yeah, so I get it, looks sort of tantalizing because of that 1-game sample size, but there's a reason he dropped to the 6th round, I would think. And what do you think it would cost to trade with the Patriots now to get Joe Milton? Probably more than a 6th-round pick.
Well, I'm sure they're going to, because they understand that there's a need for quarterbacks. So they're going to try to juice whatever they can out of that orange.
And if let's say you're the Giants and you're hypothetically looking into this as a possibility, where is Joe Milton fitting in your quarterback room? Are you trading for him instead of drafting a quarterback at 3 or on day 2? Because he certainly can't fit the bridge quarterback.
No.
Because, again, he's played 1 game. Didn't even start the game.
There are some people who want him to be the bridge quarterback, and I think that's terrible
not
mistake.
Really, he's not really. He's not a bridge quarterback. He's a developmental quarterback.
Absolutely. He is not a bridge quarterback.
The only way I could say, okay, I guess I can kind of see it, is if you're saying don't pick a quarterback at all in this year's draft and trade, I don't know what it would cost, maybe a 4th-round pick.
Right.
To the Patriots for Joe Milton.
And make him the project.
And make him your developmental guy. And then you sign a bridge quarterback and bring back Tommy DeVito, and that's your quarterback room. If that's your argument, okay, I guess I can see it.
I could digest that if I had to.
But if it were me, I would rather spend a day 2 pick on one of these young rookie quarterbacks that, just to me, I feel could have more long-term success in the NFL than Joe Milton.
But guys, he threw the fastest pass in NFL history. Doesn't that mean you're a good quarterback?
He does have great size. I'll give him that.
The New Englander chimes in from the Peanut Gallery.
Size and athleticism, Joe Milton has plenty of.
Pearson, you got relatives up there.
Yes.
What are they hearing about Milton? What is the price for Milton if somebody wants to pry him away from the Pats?
All I've heard is a 3rd or a 4th.
Yeah,
I'm not trading a 3rd-round pick for him.
I think that's really, really pricey.
Really
pricey. I'm not even sure I'd trade a 4.
Yeah, same. Oh, wow. This is some breaking news.
What do you got?
NFL-wise.
Yes, sir.
The Houston Texans just fired Bobby Slowick.
Whoa.
Who was less than a year ago getting head coach interviews. Wow.
This is the state of the NFL today, where people have no patience at all. And there are guys being jettisoned within 1 or 2 years. And it almost seems like it's a blessing or a gift if you get 3 years now. Really, that's how bad it's become.
Yeah, this is just really surprising because, obviously the big news is, Liam Cohen, what he did with the whole going back to Tampa Bay. No,
Right.
JK, I'm going to go take the Jaguars job. But Bobby Slowick was kind of the Liam Cohen of last year, that up-and-coming offensive coordinator that was getting serious head coaching looks. Like, no one would have blinked twice if Bobby Slowick got a head coaching job last year. He did not end up getting one in last year's cycle, and everyone thought if the Texans, had a good offensive season that he'd be right back in the mix again this year. And, I mean, I know CJ Stroud definitely didn't play how the Texans would have hoped, but I don't think was the offense so bad in Houston that deserved to fire the coordinator? I mean, unless there was some behind the scenes friction going on, this is just surprising to me.
While you mentioned assistants, let me give a big thumbs up to Lou Anarumo, former Giants secondary coach, who was let go by the Bengals as their defensive coordinator, even though he had a pretty good track record with some suspect talent over the course of his time there. They did get to a Super Bowl with him, and now he's the new DC with the Indianapolis Colts.
Great hire by Indy.
Really, really happy for Lou.
He is a fantastic defense coordinator.
And one hell of a great guy, too, I might add.
And if we're just touching on NFL news, we got to at least bring up the big Pete Carroll news as well.
Yes.
We'll play them next year, too.
Yes, we play Pete Carroll, I believe, in Las Vegas. He's Pete Carroll, for those that did not know, agreed this morning to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Seemed like Pearson's guy, Tom Brady, had a big push for Pete Carroll. That's not your guy?
It is my guy. Do you think it impacts anything in the draft, whether they trade up or not?
That's a good question. I feel like I don't know. There was already a lot of buzz that the Raiders are going to try to trade up, probably for Shador. Although I don't know how 3 months ahead you can say it would definitely be for Shador and not Cam Ward. But
Brady will have something to say about that, even though he was a 6th-round pick. And he turned into who he turned into. He will probably still have something to say about it. Pete Carroll, of course, is a defensive coach.
Yeah.
So I don't know how strongly he feels about the quarterbacks.
If I had to guess, I would think that Brady will be pushing to try to trade up for one of those top 2 quarterbacks. And it might take having to trade up to 1 or 2. Because if one goes 1 or 2, the Giants might be taking the other one at 3.
Or does he tell the Raiders to trade for J.J. McCarthy? Get that Michigan guy out here.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's interested in that, but I don't think Minnesota's trading J.J.
Oh, whoa, all of a sudden the phones are lighting up like a Christmas tree again. Let's go, Pearson. Let's forget the predictions for now. We got people calling in. Let's get to them. They want to call us. They want to talk to us. So we'll do that. Simply put, I was only going to say, based on the finalist list for the NFL MVP, we'll just do that real quick. Josh Allen, quarterback of the Bills. Saquon Barkley, running back for the Eagles. Joe Burrow, quarterback for the Bengals. Jared Goff, quarterback for the Lions. Lamar Jackson, quarterback for the Ravens. I would vote for Josh Allen, as I told John yesterday. I would vote for Saquon Barkley as Offensive Player of the Year, because I think the Eagles are nowhere near where they are without Saquon Barkley. So I would find a way to get him an award, but I would go Josh Allen, who does not have a superstar running back in his backfield like Lamar Jackson does with Derrick Henry in Baltimore. So I would go Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for MVP, it's almost a coin flip between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. This may not be the best tiebreaker, but for me, honestly, I'm going with Allen as well, only because Lamar's won it twice. And if it's truly a coin flip, it's baffling to me that Josh Allen has never won this award before, because he's been one of the best, if not, right up there among the best quarterbacks in the league for, 5 years now? Almost 5 years. He deserves to have an MVP on his resume. Lamar has won it twice already, including last year. I know that's not how you should think of it, but quite frankly, if I was voting, that is how I would vote, because they both deserve it, to be quite frank. Allen, Lamar, they both deserve it. For both of them, this will not be the last time they are in the MVP conversation.
I don't think so.
I'm sure they will be finalists again next year if they stay healthy. And I do agree with the season Saquon had. He does deserve Offensive Player of the Year. He was fantastic. No two ways about it. He deserves it.
And then for the Defensive Player of the Year, I'd probably go with Trey Hendrickson, who wound up leading the league in sacks and really did everything humanly possible to keep the Bengals afloat as they tried to stay in the playoff hunt as long as they could.
You know, I am so happy to see that he is nominated for this award because I have thought for years that he has been the most underrated defensive player in the NFL. He got no love when he was, wrecking opposing quarterbacks with New Orleans. He goes to Cincinnati, still not really getting the recognition he deserved. I don't think he's going to win the award, to be honest, but I am great. I'm happy to see that he's at least nominated as a finalist. For me, it's Patrick Surtain. He's just the epitome of your shutdown, lockdown corner. Like when it gets to a point where teams aren't even trying to throw the ball in a corner's direction.
I hear you.
That is a guy, we're talking like Darrelle Revis in his prime level. I think he deserves it.
No argument. These are all good names on there.
Oh, yeah.
I know I didn't go through
Vaughn
them.
is
kind
of crazy, but we won't get into it.
Yeah. Well, he was productive.
No, he was fantastic. It's crazy that he went from a near minimum signing to Defensive Player of the Year finalist. But
Duke from Queens is next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We'll see how long you go. You may be the last caller, but we'll see. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can be quick. Can you hear me though?
Yes, sir.
All right. So my first question for you is, what does the ideal head coach and GM resume look like to you? And I ask this question because looking at the schedule next year, I'm not sure if Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will be retained, but what is the ideal resume for both positions for you?
Well, first of all, they are retained for the 2025 season. That's already been established. And if you're thinking about 2026, that's a hypothetical that really has no place right now in the conversation. It just doesn't. There's another whole calendar year to go. And, John Mara needs to see something that's going to make him feel differently next January. Until that time comes, there's miles and miles and miles of different football things that can happen between now and then. So I'm not even prepared to make that to have that chat. I'll
just say I don't think you can, just generally say like, oh, a head coach resume should look like this, or a guy you're thinking about hiring to be a head coach, because different teams are always in different situations. Sometimes the move is to get the hot up-and-coming coordinator. Sometimes you want to bring in a guy that's already been a head coach before, a veteran that knows how to, lead a team. So I don't think you can sort of say it in a general sense like that. The only thing I will say is that I think it's important for GMs and coaches to be able to work well together. No matter where you are, what the situation, when those two positions cannot work well together, it tends to, lead to some friction behind the scenes. And that's why one of the reasons we're grateful for Joe Shane and Brian Daboll here, because they work well together.
And certainly more often than not, you would like those guys to be starting and stopping at the same time. Once you start splitting those two things up, you're starting to play with fire and you're starting to roll the dice. Not that you can't do it. It can be done. But it's usually a lot easier to do if the coach decides that he's going to retire and you're keeping the GM because your team has won. Well, then you're not leaving the situation in disarray. When the coach and the GM split during a time when a franchise is not doing well, it usually does not bode well for the future.
Yeah, I have a question because I've been thinking about this. How do you feel about there's now two teams that hired a head coach before hiring their GM this cycle?
I would never do that if I were in charge of a franchise, but it's been done before. We now know it's probably going to be in play again this year as we have teams that have both spots open.
Yeah, there are two teams that, the Jets have already announced Aaron Glenn, and now these reports about the Jaguars hiring Liam Cohen, and they both have GM openings still open. I just found that interesting and intriguing.
It would not be my MO if I were an owner, and I'm not, don't have nearly enough money, among other things. If I were an owner, I would not go that route. But
same. I feel the same way. I just wanted to get your opinion because I thought it was interesting that some of these teams were doing it, but to each their own, I guess.
Look, it's pretty laughable when you think about some of these teams that are bringing in like everybody except the Radio City Rockettes to interview for their jobs. I mean, it's just hysterical.
Yeah,
How could you possibly not know enough? I mean, I come from, the Ernie Corsi and the George Young school of thought, which says that you always have a list in your back pocket of 5 guys that you'd like to talk to if your GM or head coach were gone. You always have that list of 5 guys in your pocket. Well, these teams are talking how many? 15, 16, 17, 18 people for each spot?
Yeah, look, I've got nothing against having a very, very thorough search because especially there are 2 teams in particular this cycle that interviewed, 15 plus people.
Yeah, but are you not paying attention to your industry as the years go on and as the days go on that you need to say all of a sudden, oh, guess what? We need somebody. Well, call everybody.
You could be paying attention, but it's a little different paying attention to what, the industry is saying and to actually being face-to-face and speaking with that person yourself.
If you've got any kind of roots in your industry, you've got enough of tentacles and branches that pretty much know everybody in the business to some degree.
Yes, but again,
it's like the laws of Kevin Bacon, right?
The 2 teams
right?
that
what do they call that? The 6 layers of bacon, or whatever that phrase is. You have some connection to practically everybody.
But I will just say the 2 teams that did have the very, very extensive head coach searches, especially, those are 2 very important hires for those 2 franchises.
Oh, they sure are.
Is the Jets, who landed their guy, the guy that they wanted in Aaron Glenn, and the Bears, who landed their guy as well. So even though they had these extensive searches, they both landed the guys that many people thought were the favorites before they even started.
All right, folks, that'll do it for today's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Jot down the number 201-939-4513. We are back on Monday live at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about the Shrine Bowl. Until then, he's Matt Citak. I'm Paul Dottino, and we'll talk to you soon, everybody. Be well. Have a good weekend.